Welcome to Real Conversations with Patricia Baranovsky-Schneider, the podcast that takes you on a journey around the world to meet some of the most inspiring and accomplished individuals. Discover their stories, uncover invaluable business lessons from their paths to success, and gain exclusive insights on how to apply their strategies to elevate your life and business.
Hello, and welcome to Real Conversations with Patricia. I'm your host, Patty Baranowski-Schneider. Today, I'm joined by Jennifer Hotai, author of Alive and Angry. So welcome, Jennifer. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, it's so good to be here. I'm based out of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, but I actually grew up in Southern California.
Okay.
When I moved over to the East Coast, I was married twice. Two of those marriages were abusive, but the last one was extremely violent. I was in it for 10 years. But during that time, I did create my own businesses. In the meantime, I have a marketing business, and I also have a animation and consulting business, which has kept me going through all these years. I've been involved with a nonprofit and been very much involved in the community, and being an ambassador for innovative tech and an entrepreneur, and speaking on behalf about new technologies and about domestic abuse whenever I get the chance. So yeah, that's about me in a nutshell. And I'm very much a creator and someone who loves doing things for the betterment of society and empowering others to build together or do good together.
That's awesome. It's funny because I keep reading your profile and everything. I was like, wow, we have so much in common, because I mentioned I too was in, several abusive relationships, and they just seemed to get worse as time went on. And I did something similar. I wrote a book, Life's Obstacles Can Be Your Greatest Motivators. And it wasn't that I wanted to air my dirty laundry out there, but I wanted to help people who were going through the same thing, because you know yourself, your options for help are kind of limited. And I was so sick of hearing people say, oh, well, she stayed. It's not easy to leave. I mean, but you could explain all that. This is your story, but I totally get it. So now tell us about your personal journey. Alive and Angry combines your personal story with practical resources. So can you share a pivotal moment from your journey as a survivor that inspired you to write the book?
So, being able to heal over time, which takes a while, and there's no measurement of how the X amount of time is going to make you heal and remember. It just happens just randomly. But the more I healed over time and was able to get some counseling and talking with other survivors, especially helped me heal, the more I remember the key events, and the more I began to feel angry, as simple as it is, and wanted to do something about it. I wanted to make my voice known. So that's when I decided to write down some rough outlines and ideas. And people actually started to suggest to me, oh, you should write a book, Jen, about what you've been through, because you've been through a lot. And I just put that in the back of my head. And then I realized this is something I really need to do, because more people need to be aware of what goes on in these situations. And like you said, people don't understand why people stay and while they're being abused, or not even aware that they're being abused. And so I felt like this is a necessary resource where there was a huge gap and a huge, deficiency in our whole system of people having a resource to go to look at something and read those signs and know what links to go to or where to go to ask for help. So that was a huge pivotal moment for me.
It is funny because abuse comes in many forms. It doesn't always have to be physical, but people don't recognize it. And in terms of getting help, I remember I used to live 2 blocks from the police station. And I remember I had order protection after order protection. And literally the cops would come. They took 2.5 hours to get to me. I'm 2 blocks away. 2.5 hours to get. They would literally pass in the hallway, the person who was abusing me, come here, and they were like, what do you want? I'm giving them all the info. They'd pass him again as they're leaving, and he'd be right back again. And I'm like, and one cop finally, they got to a point where I had 17 reports after one person. And I'm like, we're getting nowhere. And then the cop was like, do you really need us to write another report? And I'm like in tears at this point. It was like, you guys aren't doing anything to help me. And the one cop said, I hate to say this, but until you're hospitalized or God forbid dead, we're really limited what we can do. And that's when the reality hit me. I'm like, so when people say, oh, well, she stayed, you try being in a situation like that and leaving and think it's that easy, because it's not, and this person stalked me. He I had somebody walking me to work, walking me. I'm like so I totally get it. But now tell us, what was the process like for you emotionally and creatively when writing Alive and Angry? And how do you balance sharing personal experience with providing practical advice?
So it was a really cathartic experience for me, for actually anyone in this position. And I imagine yourself can feel that way when you're saying it out loud, writing it on a piece of paper or typing it down. The more I felt that feeling, the more I felt released, the more I felt positive, and felt like I was growing, more like I was healing. So it became addictive a little bit, and I start that getting into that creative groove of writing and then the more the memories came back because my brain has, healed from a
Mhm.
lot of the traumatic damage, or TBI, traumatic brain injury. So I was able to process a lot of what happened to me and be able to write down what the details were.
Mhm.
And then my experience as a designer was my 25 plus years of design experience. I was able to illustrate some of the process or the cycle, and put together a pitch section, which with my entrepreneurial background felt like it was necessary to put that perspective because no one else has done that I'm aware
Mhm.
of what a solution would look like from a tech standpoint, from a like a law enforcement and legal system standpoint would look like. And as I began to do it more, the more I realized, oh, this needs this aspect and this piece, and this is built up to be a resource book, not just my story in
Mhm.
itself, in order to make it more impactful and it actually something that could save lives rather than just tell story and that be forgotten but on the wayside. This is something
Mhm.
that could be passed along to other people to know what to do in those situations.
Right. Yeah, resource book is great because they're really I never found one, not that I'm looking recently, but I never found one. And anything you do find is just telling you get an order of protection, report it to the police, and walk away.
Right.
That's not really helping. So people kind of throw their hands up in the air and they're like, I don't know what else to do, and most people are embarrassed. They don't want to tell, their family or friends what they're going through. So they kind of just suffer in silence. So I think that's great that you put a resource book together. And I guess, like, just speaking of it, like many survivors, they struggle to share the stories. So what motivated you to speak out and how has it shaped your advocacy work?
I felt like not enough voice or like as we were talking about, people being not aware of the situation and my frustration of going through the system and then hearing other survivors' stories motivated me to write this and put this out there because that I felt like if I don't do this, who else is going to be doing this? I felt like this is a necessary step for us to reduce the amount of domestic violence or domestic abuse in general, of those cases by educating people. So in order to do that, I have to be very thorough with it, be able to put this all together and also accept other stories besides myself. So that's when I contacted NCADV, which is the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the largest helpline in the US. Reach out to their PR person and then be able to, get them to send people my way to tell their stories so that I can get a well-rounded perspective of everyone's stories. And when I added their collection of stories on there, and it felt more complete. So that's what really helped motivate me and get also their positive feedback and their release also from writing things that they felt safe with, was doing with me and not who never been empowered to do before in a different kind of more honest and transparent tone. I think it helped with their healing to it. I certainly hope it did. And
Mm.
that's what kept me going was completing the book.
Oh, that's awesome. And it gives people a little power because, I'm a pretty educated person, graduated valedictorian, got my master's 4.0 GPA, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a stupid person, but you're made to feel worthless regardless. You just feel like, because these psychos try to convince you you're an idiot. This is your fault. I'm doing this. And you just start believing it after a while. So it gives people that power back, which, is really so uplifting. And, it's like you become a whole new person. So I commend you for doing that. And, like you mentioned that your book offers resources. So can you highlight a few of the most critical tools or strategies that help you navigate your own healing journey?
Yes, definitely. So a lot of them is, getting a restraining order was one of the helpful things. That really helps at least create a paper trail, and allows you to call a police dispatch on the offender in the domestic violence case. Without that, there wouldn't be much power, and that abuser cannot be arrested. So I had that peace of mind. It's just a piece of paper though. So then I also got a home security system. So it allows me to go to sleep at night. During those first few months of my abuser being released from prison, or just from jail, not prison. They do that whole revolving door thing. They get checked in and then they just get bonded out in the next 24 hours. So I felt like that was necessary for me, so that at least I have video footage if he is anywhere near my property. And then being able to reach out to local organizations, a local advocacy group, which is Family Justice Center, which is based in the Horry County, Myrtle Beach area in South Carolina, who helped me, get into a counseling group that helped me with the healing process. So that those tools are some of the things that helped me feel a little safer, get a little empowered. The rest was writing the book, that really helped me put together this, were a lot of tools such as, the Adobe software and design, Photoshop, etc. I used Perplexity AI to help put together all the data and research points, etc., which saved me hundreds of hours of time. So that really helped consolidate everything into what I needed to, but make it look like it's very readable, understandable, and have that completeness that I needed to make it, something that would stick in your head no matter which perspective you're looking at, from a survivor, a researcher, or a, victim standpoint.
Nice. Now, your book, Alive and Angry, it includes perspectives from other survivors. So what are some common themes or lessons from their stories that stood out to you?
What is common is, a lot of them staying, a lot of them feeling guilt and shame from being with an abuser for so long, experiencing the stigmas of their society, whether it's their religion. Notice a few themes of their particular religious group, making them feel like they are pressured to stay within that relationship or push towards that relationship when they really didn't want to. And then the lack of ability to get help after that, and then not knowing, and the confusion after that. Which particularly stood out to me was the use of children in a way to further abuse the victim, which is common in narcissistic abusive relationships with it, which is one of the most vile things that you can do as a human being. But I got that from multiple different stories of how that there's no hope in that situation, where you have to leave that situation and hope that the child grows up and able to get the help they need, and separation enough away from the abuser that they were raised by, so that they can kind of mend any relationship that they may hope to have with the mother in most cases. So yeah, those were the common things and typical things that I encountered, though there are many other things inside of those stories that were absolutely horrifying, especially from a physical abuse standpoint, that left me with my jaw dropped open. That's when I let loose so my feelings to the person who wrote it, and say, oh my God, and I was totally transparent with what my thoughts are, and she was like, oh, thank you for acknowledging this. Since it was really a cathartic experience for me to write this, and have you send this to you, and write your thoughts back. Yeah.
It's funny, you mentioned narcissist abuse. I wasn't even thinking that, but you are right. I hear that constantly. And using the kids, I'm hearing that from, and like we said originally, it doesn't always mean physical abuse, even though sometimes that's included. But the narcissist, so many people I talk to, they're dealing with that with the kids, and it doesn't necessarily mean a husband and wife, or girlfriend, boyfriend, or girlfriend, or whatever relationship. Sometimes it's family. You can have a narcissist who doesn't want to deal with you, and they're going to hold the kids against you. And the abuse just goes on and on and on. And people need to realize that is a form of abuse. Yeah. Now tell us with the role of nonprofits. As a board member of Armor Up Sister, how do you see nonprofits like this contributing to systematic change and addressing domestic violence?
So I think some of the things you can do as a nonprofit would be providing resources, such as safe escape workshops or education, which is one of the number one things that you can do for all ages. Um, and be able to start addressing the issue within your community, being able to talk more openly about it at events and other, platforms where people would listen. And then, being able to have survivors like myself, you know, to tell our stories, and, give advice on what works, what is needed, what was missing in our experiences going through the system, whether it was law enforcement to the legal process and getting help afterwards. That needs to be told, and not just with the general average citizen, but with lawmakers ultimately, because those people in the end have the power to change
Mhm.
how law enforcement treats these cases, these calls that happen, and what to do with the cases afterwards and how to deal with it so that the victim is further protected in these situations. So those are my, suggestions as far as when it comes to nonprofits or being involved with it. And any help, of course, at least be able to donate clothes or other goods,
Mhm.
diapers, etc., to your local advocacy group because they always need them.
That's actually good advice. Now, regarding advocacy and change, like what societal or general or legal changes do you believe are most urgently needed to better support survivors of domestic violence?
I think that, as we both are aware, the dealing with the bail system, being able to address that, which I wrote inside the book about, I forgot exactly what I wrote, but it was about not making sure that people do not just immediately get out. And so that it gives enough time for the victim to leave and find a situation. Because sometimes, which was in my situation, is only a matter of minutes when I find out that my abuser was released. I was lucky because they even called me back about this because I asked them, the police station, to call me when he was released from jail. So that needs to be addressed. And then the also the ability for abusers to visit children of the victim, which I heard from those stories, and from other abusers in person. I don't think they should be able to be able to do that because that creates a very dangerous situation. You're just creating new opportunities for the abuser to stalk the victim, torment them, and possibly do physical bodily harm, which it did happen, to a woman, in San Francisco, a couple of years ago, I believe, in that situation. So court mandated visitation, I felt like should be completely reformed with that. And amongst all others things that should be handled, I think those are the two things that creates the biggest dangers, for victims, whether it's immediately after, the creation of the domestic violence case to further down the road when you're dealing with, children or any situation where it requires you to further interact with the abuser.
Yeah, I agree. Now tell us, as a tech enthusiast and leader, how do you see emerging technologies playing a role in preventing domestic violence or supporting survivors?
I believe that the integration of AI is necessary. There's also blockchain capabilities with the health system, but I think that takes a larger adoption rate and is a little bit of a, steeper hill to climb for a lot of hospital systems and law enforcement systems to do altogether. But if they, in theory, were able to use those systems together, then the data in the case information would be less likely to be lost or corrupted and mishandled, which is a common case.
Mhm.
Because one, there's still a huge problem with the healthcare system handling patient data right now. And of course, one of the number one deaths in the US is from misdiagnoses. The whole point of it being able to put it on blockchain would be to reduce and solve that problem, because it would be something that would not be corrupted and would be a digital ledger that keeps track of everything that is passed around between different agencies. If you include AI, then it'll be able to proactively create rules and things to identify when new patterns of crime would happen, or when there's other kinds of issues with a case, or when new information being taken in, like photos, videos, and other medical information would be put in there. It can handle it a lot smarter to do that. This is a large scale thing, I felt like, and as I put into the book, I suggested that maybe you start off with one state, and probably in one of the largest areas of, well known for domestic violence, to see how this does. If this is proven to do well, and create better efficiencies, then the proposal would be to introduce this to the other top 10 states with the highest DV rates, and then potentially the rest of the United States, etc. The other biggest things I proposed in the book is to have a global domestic violence registry. This has been proposed by many different people around the world, especially in the US, and brought into legislation. And the problem is private, the privacy issue, the data issue, which would cause litigation, and of people suing, the organization running it. Of course, that's what people are afraid of, for identifying them as a DV person, etc. The good thing, I think there would be more good coming from this than litigation, because people can identify who is a abuser, in the system, and they can't take that information down. Like having a sex offender registry is necessary. So therefore, a DV registry is necessary, especially if 1 in 3 women in the world are victims of domestic violence, and 1 in 4 men are victims of domestic violence. It's a huge human rights issue. So that is where this all comes to play. If we can have that get done, along with all the new, technical infrastructure brought together, then we can have this totally addressed, and help reduce drastically the amount of domestic violence cases around the world.
It's funny when you mentioned the sexual database. I was thinking the same thing, because it is true. I mean, like my one ex, he just, when he can't get no more from you, he just moves from state to state to state to state. And I've had people, like, somehow, ironically, as stupid as this is, when I kind of felt like I could never get rid of him, we were already broken by, had already fled. He shows up another time and he says, he kept saying, oh, my back is so itchy. And I'm just kind of like, whatever. And he kept saying, I'm trying to get away from him. We're in a crowded street. And finally he takes off his shirt, and he had tattooed on his back. He had a photo of me. Obviously we were together, but he had a photo of me where he had the clothes removed. So he has a naked photo of me on his back saying his name and my name together forever. And I'm like, I'm never getting rid of this man. So anyway, whoever he had been with after that, my name must have come up, and they would somehow track me down online. And now I'm like, oh my God, if they found me, he's going to find me. But they had no clue. So I did, like, kind of what you were mentioning, secretly saying, don't leave yet. Don't mention you're getting in touch with him. I'm helping these people escape him in a process. I'm like, don't just leave now if he knows you're talking to me. But had they have been on a registry, this could have all been avoided, because they would be alerted. Oh my God, this man's trouble. Especially when it's not just one person, when they start seeing a pattern across many states, so I agree 100% that there should be a registry for that.
I also want to add that dating apps need to include this in some way. And this happened a lot of times. And Australia especially had these horrific incidents where women were murdered by people on their first date. And they keep saying, if she had known that he was a domestic abuser or had a violent criminal past, then she would not have been killed in a horrific way. And that could be said around untold amounts of stories around the world for people who encounter dangerous people in there. If they have known, there's a way to quickly view that information. You don't have to get murdered first for you to figure out that person is a domestic violence person, or be in the hospital, be in a long-term abusive relationship where you have economic burden and have your life taken away from you. There needs a way to stop this prior to doing this. And this is our
100%.
time to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So tell us, have your creative endeavors like finding Plover Animation helped you heal and find purpose in the aftermath of your experience?
It allowed me to have my own individualism, to take
Mhm.
back my own identity, basically to be proud of doing something on my own without it having my abusive ex-husband involved in some way. Because prior to me escaping, he wanted to be involved and say that he was responsible for doing every positive thing in my life, every professional thing, which he had zero contribution with, made $0 to the whole relationship, everything. So being able to do this on my own, it felt empowering. Felt like it was but good, especially as a female founder, in every way since the world, and being able to go out and do something exciting. There's no words to describe that, euphoric maybe. It is just nothing but good. So I highly recommend it. If you're leave an abusive relationship, go do something for yourself. Doesn't have to be a business. Do something for yourself that makes you, bring out your own identity back.
So now looking forward, what's next for you in your advocacy and creative career? And are there any other projects, books, or initiatives that you're excited to share with the audience?
I want to talk about it more and hope that I can promote it on more platforms, because I felt like the more this is read by as many people in the world, the more likely people's lives will be saved. So I need to work on being able to get this into as many libraries, as many bookstores, as many, organizations that could hand this out. Colleges especially can use this as an academic resource, especially because this is the more up-to-date information book I've ever seen. And being able to advocate for that through that and bring more awareness, that would be the very first step that I want. If I write a second book, it would have more data of more recent cases, etc., with more brainstorming. I feel like this book is complete on its own by itself. So I need to really start, promoting and, getting it, as many people's hands as possible.
I agree. I like the college idea. I mean, because it is true. It starts someplace, so I mean, yeah, I agree. So now how could people get a hold of you, learn more about you, your website and all that good stuff?
So there's several ways to get in touch. You can go to Amazon and look up Alive and Angry, and you'll be able to find that book on there. Or you can just go to aliveandangry.com and you'll be able to view the book information, basic outline, and also have a resources page to figure out, okay, what are the signs of an abusive relationship? What are the hotlines? Here are the 10 most largest organizations around the world you can go to contact, and here's a safe escape plan. And of course, there's a link to the book from that website. You can get in contact through that, or you can go on LinkedIn and look up Jennifer Hotai and be able to send me a message.
Thanks. Well, thank you again for being on the show. Again, that was Jennifer Hotai. So thanks for listening to Real Conversations with Patricia. Never miss an episode by subscribing to the channel. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me, Patricia.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Real Conversations with Patricia, talking with some of the most brilliant minds on their journey to success and their recommended strategies. Please leave your feedback and visit pristineadvisors.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Feel free to let me know your thoughts, suggestions, and anything else you'd like me to cover. Together, we can make success happen for all.